and welcome. My name is Cheryl DeFrank, and I am a certified photo manager and a member of the Photo Managers Organization. I'm thrilled to have you here with us for this session of Save Your Photos Month 2025. Every year, we dedicate the month of September to sharing information and guidance for organizing, digitizing, and safeguarding your most cherished memories. So far this month, we've explored preserving printed photos, digitizing your collections, and organizing digital files. But today, we're going to take a completely new angle. We're going to learn what your family photos are really telling you. So ask yourself, do you have boxes of old family photos filled with unidentified faces or mysterious moments that you can't quite remember? Lisa Lisson is our special guest today, who will guide us through her proven 4-step photo analysis method to uncover hidden stories in your pictures, from clothing styles to body language to the tiniest props and details in the photo that hold valuable information. If you haven't yet, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. And if you haven't already, be sure to register for Save Your Photos Month to get reminder emails for all the remaining sessions, covering all kinds of topics to help organize, preserve, and safely share your family photos. The link is in the video description for this video, and Save Your Photos Month is free. All of the sessions are completely free. So take a moment to say hello in the chat, and we'll get started in just a minute. Welcome back. I wanted to introduce our speaker today is Lisa Lisson. Lisa is a family story expert and founder of Are You My Cousin? She has decades of experience helping people navigate family history, research, caption oral histories, preserve photos, and turn scattered research into stories that connect generations. Lisa has spoken at genealogy conferences, contributed to Family Tree magazine, and has her own popular YouTube channel called Are You My Cousin? Lisa's going to teach us how to analyze photos using her 4-step method so we can date images, understand family relationships, and uncover the fascinating social context behind each picture. So during the session, type your questions in the chat as you watch, and Lisa will answer them during the Q&A at the end. So without further ado, let's welcome Lisa Lisson to show us how to become a family photo detective. Take it away, Lisa.
Thanks, Cheryl. I'm so excited to be here, and I have got some slides I'm going to share, so we'll go ahead and take a peek at those, and we can get started. I am really thrilled to be talking about family photos because I have been researching family history for, well, a number of years, and what I was finding is that while I could find my ancestors in the records, all of a sudden I would find a photograph and realize there was just as much information in that photograph as there was in, say, an estate record or a will that I found out in the archives. So I realized very quickly that not only could family photos connect myself and help me ground me in my own heritage and culture as well as my children's, that they could also provide some really valuable information when it comes to building out a family tree. So that's sort of what we're going to be talking about today, and really looking at what that family photo is really telling us today. So if we haven't met before, I am down in North Carolina, and I do run the website and YouTube channel, Are You My Cousin, as Cheryl mentioned. And we're going to jump right into this. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. Now, this is something that I think, well, it's a quote that's been around for quite a long time. It is attributed to Fred Barnard, and I had heard it for a long time. I hadn't really thought a lot about it, but as I was looking through my photographs and started working with photographs as part of my research process, I realized that's exactly what these photographs were doing. They were telling us, each photograph, each picture was telling me a story about the individual, about the event, about even the scenery, whatever the image was. And so I was thrilled to really kind of start to dig into the stories. When I started doing family history a number of years ago, what I noticed is that I started asking questions to family members, who was related to whom, what were the family stories, and all of a sudden, my extended family seemed to take that as the cue to clean out their closets and clean out from under the beds. And I would come home from Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving family gathering with boxes, literally boxes of hundreds of photographs, um, 100 plus years old. So, and forward. So I just would have all of these boxes. I would go to my mailbox and find an envelope with a 100-year-old photograph in it that was just coming to me through snail mail. And so I was thrilled to have these. I know that today listening, we have folks who are interested in photographs. We have some family historian enthusiasts. We have family photo organizing, people who are interested in organizing. So I think we all can appreciate the fact that where we find these photographs can be quite varied in how they find us, and that they are quite valuable and have a lot of information for us to look at. Now, the first step that when I'm working with a photograph, if I want to understand that photograph, the first thing I'm really going to do is scan it. Many of my photographs that I have, my older photographs, are original photographs. They're not necessarily scanned. In recent years, I'm getting more scanned digital copies of photographs that people send to me or will share with me. They'll just scan it themselves and share it with me, which is great. Once I have a scanned photograph, though, I'm typically going to go ahead and enhance that photograph. I'm going to do that with tools. Say MyHeritage is a photo suite that I use quite a bit to enhance my photographs. PhotoMine has that properties as well. They're just, even your cell phone, even our smartphones have those apps to, once we scan a photograph, we can edit it by cleaning it up. We can change the contrast if we need to. We can fix the coloration. We can take out, some of them will take out minor scratches. Some photographs, if they're heavily damaged, I have had to seek out professional help for those, but I can do quite a bit, and I think you can too with just a cell phone, with the apps on my cell phone or on my laptop as well. Now, the reason I do that is, one, I want to preserve that image and I want to get a really clear picture, but I also want to reveal any hidden details that might be in a photograph. And so because I'm looking for things that are going to be in the background of a lot of my photographs. When I sharpened up the images here and cleaned up some contrast, I realized that this was a black cloth on top of the baby's parent or whoever's holding that baby, that these are his knees. These are the knees of the person holding the baby. I just thought that was kind of a really cool little tidbit to learn about. So let me show you another one. So this is a photograph here on the left. So this was the original photograph. It's a pretty decent photograph, quite frankly. But I did use, I think on this one, I was using the MyHeritage Photo Suite 4, and I cleaned it up. I enhanced it. A lot of the programs these days will also sharpen an image. So you can see her features became a little sharper. I like to do that. Again, I'm looking at the individual here and getting it cleaned up. I'm looking for details. So you can see it's a very quick process. So I'm going to, if I don't have a digital image, I'm going to create a digital image, and then I am going to clean it up a bit there. Now, when it comes to getting to the next step, this is the fun part. This is where I start getting really to the fun stuff, guys. The next thing I do is I really study the individuals. I want to look at the individuals. And when I'm looking at a photograph, and if I know who they are, great. If I don't, I'm going to be pulling those clues. I'm looking at clothing styles, because clothing styles are going to tell me when a photograph may have been taken. Most women and men, when they were having their photograph taken, you're not wearing your worst clothes. You're wearing your nicest clothes. You want to be fashionable. You want to present a good front there. And so you're going to be dressed in, a more updated style. I'm looking at body language. So, looking at the clothes, this is a couple, they lived in rural Virginia, and I can pretty much date this one to the late 1950s, early 1960s, kind of based on her dress, her cardigan. She might not have been the most fashion forward person at the time, but I know kind of what they were wearing during that time period in Virginia. So I kind of have an idea of what those fashions were. Um, and I'm looking for accessories. Now, she doesn't have any accessories. She is wearing glasses, so I can take a peek at those. I can look at his shoes, which would tell me a little bit more. Sometimes I can get a clue. These were actually just brown loafers, kind of a basic shoe. Sometimes I find a work boot, which might indicate the type of work they did. I'm looking at her facial shape. So if I did not know that who this couple was, and I actually did, I could look at the facial shape and I would could be able to tell you immediately that the woman is the one who is in my family line, that would be a husband. He married into the family. But this woman, this is the facial shape that I see in photograph after photograph in generations throughout the family. So I know right away what side of the family she belongs to. So I'm always studying faces there. She has no accessories, but thinking back to this picture we just looked at, this is my great-grandmother. This is, again, I'm looking at her facial shape. Again, this is a shape that I see a lot. I'm studying her features to see if I see any features in myself, if I see other children, other generations. I notice that there's an asymmetry in her eyes. And the reason that kind of picked up on that is I actually have seen that same asymmetry in the eyes and the eyebrows in other generations in the same family line. So I know when I see that, now I can recognize a photograph, even though I might not know who it is. I have an idea of, oh, I think that's part of that particular family. So that's very helpful. Looking at the clothing, again, if you want to date when this photograph was taken, I don't know exactly when it was taken, but I'm going to tell you it was taken in the 1910s, sometimes between 1910 and 1919, probably in that time period, because of the top that she's wearing. This was the common style. This was very popular. And so I can get a pretty close approximation for date. And then I'd be able to kind of know her age. She's got this lovely pen here on her, piece of jewelry on her blouse. I make note of all of these things. Sometimes I will see this show up in someone on a different person, say a different woman's blouse pinned to her blouse. Sometimes you'll see these show up just handed down through the family, and so we can kind of see who owned that particular piece of jewelry. This one's not as clear, and for this particular piece, I've not seen it since, but I do know that sometimes can be helpful. The other thing that I'm looking at in accessories, well, this guitar is not, a clothing accessory. It's obviously very prominent, and it tells me about her. So yes, I know that this is Winnie Haley Carr. I know this was taken in the 1910s, and she's, got this, done her hair. She's beautifully dressed, but I know more about her, Winnie, at this point. I know that Winnie was musical, and she went so far as to have her musical instrument, her guitar, with her for this photograph. So I immediately knew that not only was she musical, but music had to play an important part of her life. And so I was actually able to ask some distant cousins about this, and they said, absolutely, absolutely, music was a huge part of this family. And they went on and shared with me about the family dances that they would have after a meal on the weekends. So I was able to not only learn about her, but then use that as a stepping stone to ask other people in the family, what's going on? Tell me about this particular family member, and what else can you tell me? Here's another fun picture that I have. This is taken actually from 1905, and I was able to date that based on the children's clothes and the approximate ages of the children. So it is around 1905 here, and this is the Richardson family out of Southern Virginia. When you blow this up, you would actually be able to see that there is kudzu behind them, which gives us a good answer that this is probably in the South somewhere with all the kudzu vines we have down here. But I'm looking at this, and I have this beautiful family of 5, and I look at the facial features, and I definitely see these facial features, particularly Hattie's, coming through the generations. The children are dressed to the nines, because what mother does not dress up her children for a family photograph, right? We do that. She did it back then in the early 1900s, and we do it today. We want to make sure the family looks good for those family photos. That's a really lovely connection point that I can have. It doesn't matter that this was taken over 100 years ago. She was a mom. I'm a mom. We have the same things. We want the same things for our children and for our families. So I thought that was kind of a cool connection there. But so we can see the children. We do know, based on the style of the dress, that this was taken in the early 1900s. If you're unsure of something, but you have a photograph with a dress with the fashions, you can actually Google children's fashions 1900. But these days, I would just upload it to say, Chat GPT and ask it to evaluate it for approximate year that the photograph was taken. And it will get pretty close. Sometimes you have to do a little more detective work, but it's actually, I've had pretty good luck with that. The other thing I'm looking at here is this family. I'm looking at postures. I want to know. The kids look a little like tired of this whole thing. The little boy here, he's dressed to the nines, but look, no shoes. This kid is all boy. He does no shoes. All the girls are all dressed up. The four of them are all looking one direction, and for whatever reason, Hattie here is looking off to the other direction. Will never know what caught her attention, but she's looking in the opposite direction, and I find that rather interesting as well. So there's a lot to be pulled from this particular photograph here. His posture, that was the other thing I wanted to point out, posture. Look how stiff he looks. This tells me that this gentleman, Daniel right here, this is not his normal clothing outfit, probably. This is not his normal clothes. He looks kind of like he's standing up straight and proper, like you would to get that photograph, but that he seems a little ill at ease to me in these dress clothes, as opposed he might be comfortable without being quite so formal. So I thought that was kind of a fun thing to think about. This is actually one of the little girls all grown up. And this is a really fun thing. Again, looking at the facial features, I do continue to see this through. This is the woman that we saw in that previous photograph. This is a friend. This person is not related to me. But what do I notice? These women, they are smiling. They are best friends. She's left-handed. Turns out my great-grandmother was left-handed. Who knew? And so when I actually asked about this, they said, absolutely, she was left-handed, as was her mother. And so it's a really nice touch point for some of the younger generations who would never have known her, because she passed away in 1927, actually right after this photograph was taken. And it's a way of saying, is that where I got my left-handedness from? You know, children today, younger people today, that's a really nice connection that they have to those generations. And that's what will spark the younger generation's interest in family history. When you can make those little connections, those stories, that connects them. Now here's a modern photograph. I'm a family historian. I'm a genealogy researcher. I have a lot of older photographs. I'm very fortunate in that. But definitely our more quote unquote modern photographs will also be telling us stories as well. And so here we have this family's just a fun photograph. I don't know what the occasion was. It was probably just a weekend visit type of thing. And we have the family patriarch right here. Right here. He would have been in his late 80s when this photograph was taken. And we have his son right here and his daughter right here. And so, of course, I can see the family resemblance. He was dressed to the nines. But the thing that really struck me with this particular photograph when it comes to looking at these individuals is these three are sitting on a couch. And here is a man in his 80s, well into his 80s, apparently sitting on the floor for this photograph, because look how much lower he is than the group. So he and his grandson are sitting on the floor. I thought that was really amazing, because what it tells me about him is that he must have been pretty healthy, pretty mobile, because he was getting on and off the floor for this photograph. The other thing is that he had to be doing well enough with that and was able to move well enough because his children let him do that. Most of us would defer and say, no, you need to sit on the couch. But no, he's sitting on the floor. So it tells me a little bit about him, that he's kind of does his own thing, that he's able to move, that he had good health. And sure enough, he did. He did live to be 103. So yeah, in his 80s, he was still getting on and off the floor. Now, after I've scanned it, after I've really studied the individuals in that particular photograph, I want to think about what is the occasion of that photograph? Why was that photograph taken? What was going on? What was the purpose of that photograph? Now, today with the cell phones and, taking just so many pictures of everything we eat, everything we do, everything we see, sometimes there's really not a clear-cut occasion or purpose behind something that we were seeing a little bit earlier on. So in this case, a lot of the family photographs that I see and work with in family history and genealogy tend to be specific events. And I would start to see things like family reunions, birthday parties, weddings, and I'm thinking more casual, certainly formal wedding photos, but kind of the casual photographs that people would take at a wedding, those accidental photographs that we would see taken. These can be really revealing when it comes to family history clues. And the reason we're seeing more photographs of these is that around 1900, right around 1900, the Brownie camera was introduced by Kodak. And what this did is it was for the very first time, it made photography for the general public actually affordable. And that's when I noticed a big uptick in the types of photograph and the era of the photographs that I have. A large number of them. I have some from the 1800s, but starting around 1900, going into 1910, I see a big uptick in the number of photographs I have of my ancestors. It became affordable. My great-grandparents were basically teenagers at the time, teenagers and young adults, and they embraced that photography as my children embraced social media. This was their social media in a sense. So we are seeing a lot more of those out there. So what was the occasion? Obviously, taking them for birthday parties. So this is a 4-year-old's birthday party right here. This grouping, if you look at this is actually a wedding party. Now, the interesting thing here is it's not necessarily a great picture. People aren't even looking at the camera. So somebody's just snapping candid photographs on this particular wedding day. This is about 1960. And, we can tell the style and date this particular photograph to around that 1960 time period based on the style of the dresses and the haircuts of the men. We can also see when you're looking at those casual photographs, again, somebody just taking a photograph, not a formal one. This is the bridal party. So we know who was showing up for that bride and groom. We know who were their closest relatives, who were their closest friends, who made the journey to be there with them for a family reunion, for their wedding. So we know who was important. We start to see family showing up, who was close to them, who were they closer to. Some, every family's a little different. Some are closer than others. So we see that a bit with that. So that's a really nice way to see who is important to whom on these particular photographs. And that can play into family history and family stories. We also see a little bit of are there couples there? So we see these two, couples holding linked arms. So they are actually husband and wife. That's a lovely clue. When you're a genealogist and you're trying to figure out who married whom, this can be a really lovely clue. Wouldn't prove it because maybe they could have been joking around, but it would be a lovely clue to follow up on, to find the records for. So photographs. Maybe the occasion or the reason for that photograph was to showcase a hobby, a contest that somebody may have done, something that they enjoyed in their pastime. So in this case, we have fishermen. My grandfather right here, his father right here, they went on a fishing trip. They enjoyed deep sea fishing. They didn't do it very often based on where they lived, but they did enjoy it. And so this is a lovely way to find that out, to understand what they enjoyed. Maybe it's something that stayed in the family. Maybe they were the only ones in the family who ever did it. But it's nice to know a little bit of what their interests were. It gives a little color to the photograph as well. So I find this to be, quite fascinating to see who was in it. Also looking at who went. Originally, I actually thought this photograph was just from my grandfather till I started studying the men and realized that his father was standing way over here on the left. And so we see who enjoyed hanging out together. But it does give us an idea. I had no idea they enjoyed fishing. And so this photograph gave me a little bit of information on that. This is a really interesting photograph. Talking about occasion, I actually don't know the occasion of this photograph. I think it might be a wedding. I'm not 100% sure that, the couple is not wearing your traditional, wedding garb for a bride and groom. But look at this table, guys. We have a white cake that's decorated. So this was a little snapshot, guys. It was a little snapshot. It was faded. I did scan it and adjust the colors to it. And they're cutting the cake. The fine crystal is out. Okay, this is a farming family, but the fine crystal is out. And if you notice here, their hands, she is holding his arm and he's cutting the cake, much like a bride and groom would cut a cake together, right? So I actually wonder if this is not perhaps their wedding reception. Perhaps it is. I'm not really sure. I can also tell a little bit about a personality, because when I look at this woman here, the elder woman in the back, I do know who she is. She's got her apron on. She is dressed, and she's kind of eyeing. She's making sure everything's going right. She is the woman in charge. And so when I actually looked at this photograph, and I actually reached out to some cousins afterwards and said, was Grandma Haley the one? I said, was she always kind of the woman in charge, kind of ran the mealtime, ran the household? And they went, hands down, absolutely, yes. She was very much the woman in charge, and nobody argued with her about it. Down here we see, I love this one here. This gentleman here, he's handing out flowers at a USO dance, and I love it. He's got this beautiful smile, and he's leaning toward the girl. He's flirting. He's a flirt. He's flirting with her, and I think that's a really fun thing to do. I did know him later in his life, and he's a really fun guy to be around. Now, the next step that I look at, once I've kind of looked at, the person, I've studied the occasion, I really look at the background of a photograph. And this is one of the reasons that I do like to scan them and enhance them a little bit through contrast or, colorizing a little bit, because you can tell a lot about the story of a photograph based on the background of that photograph. So you can tell the socioeconomic status of somebody. You can tell location clues, like where somebody lived or approximate locations. You can find out kind of what time period something was taken. This particular photograph here, I'm noticing the gentleman is wearing an apron, and we've got the kind of trash cans kind of lined up. It looks like there's a spigot here, and they're kind of marked off. So I don't think it looks like he's at his house. It looks different. It looks like some kind of camp or something, but I don't necessarily know what it is based on this. I do know, looking at the terrain here, this is very flat, as you can tell. These, I believe, were pine trees, though there's enough, the photograph is blurry enough that I couldn't be for sure. So my guess would be Eastern North Carolina for this particular photograph, based on the family. So I can pull some clues there, but I might need to do a little more background research on him to understand exactly what was going on. But let me show you this next picture. This photograph is not a great photograph. Another not so great photograph. I think if we took it today, I think it would be deleted immediately. Nobody's even looking at the camera, right? Nobody's looking at the camera. It's way overexposed here in the front, so it's difficult to see what's here. And you really can't see who all is there, right? But guys, this photograph has so many different stories and so many levels of stories in it that it became a really valuable piece of family history for me, and sparked a lot of conversations and helped me fill out a family tree. I had to scan it in. I did clean it up a little bit using one of the photo suite tools and started looking at it. I suspect that these two were probably supposed to be the subject of this photograph. I think my grandfather took the photograph of my grandmother and my mother, and that my grandmother, for whatever reason, looked down at the last second. I don't know for sure, but that's my thought process there. Now, when I look at this photograph, I'm looking at who was there, certainly. So I'm seeing who was in the background. And again, I'm not seeing a lot of faces, but I am seeing, people I recognize. The occasion is a birthday party, the yearly birthday party for this gentleman right here, Suggs Howard. He is the patriarch of this particular family. This is his home, and every year the family got together for a birthday lunch. And this one was been taken about 1946 or 1947. So I know that based on the child's age, but I also know it based on, say, I'm looking at the ties. I'm looking at this type of hat over here. I'm looking at the women's dresses. So I can use those clues to kind of pinpoint when this particular photograph might have been taken. And then I start looking at the house. Now, oftentimes I use the black and white photograph for this type of thing because I don't want to miss anything. But this particular case, I did colorize this particular photograph. So I did colorize it. And I wanted to get a better look at this house. Okay, what can I learn about this family? This gentleman, this is his house. This is the roof, which is in sore need of repair. It is not in good shape, as we can tell. This poor chimney, guys, this is not looking in good shape either. We have a ladder that maybe somebody was trying to do something on the house, but that ladder looks a little sketchy. I'm not going to get on it, that's for sure. Looking over here, we have a window, but there's a board in the window. There's no glass. This tells me that he didn't have a lot. Socioeconomically, he did not have a lot. When I went a little further to reach out to some older cousins before they passed away, they did confirm that for me and said actually the house had no electricity. So this, he didn't have a lot, but he did have family, and the family showed up. Looking here, down here, this looks obviously exposed, but this tells the story of the culinary heritage of this family, of my family. All right, this was taken in Eastern North Carolina. On this table, what I can identify is sliced white bread. I don't know why, but sliced white bread frequently showed up at the family potlucks. So I'm not really sure the significance of that, but it did. And here it is again on this table. We have fried chicken and fried fish, very common. Here, this family lived close to a river, so they would frequently have fish. So we have fried chicken and fried fish. We have canned vegetables. Now, the colorization on this one isn't quite right. This would have been pickles, likely, possibly squash, but I believe it was actually probably going to be pickles based on the shape of what I'm seeing in it. And so I believe that was that. We have the white cake over here. So we have the white layered cake, very common for this family to have a white cake there. And here we have, actually, this is a pail of water. I thought it might be stew, but I asked, it's a pail of water because the house had no running water. They had a well pump that they used. So again, I can get a glimpse into what was the culinary heritage? What was that heritage of the foods that my family ate? So it's kind of fascinating and interesting to look at. And one more, do you remember we talked about personalities a little bit, looking at postures, and everybody looks pretty relaxed, but take a look at this lady back here. She's standing back. She's a little bit older, as you can tell. She's got her hands on her hips. She is watching. She is surveying everything that's going on. And I immediately thought, I know who that is. I couldn't identify her based on her facial features because of the photograph itself. But when I looked at her and I saw her posture, I immediately knew who she was in the family, because she was always the one working in the background. She was a little bit more of a prickly personality, but kind of in charge and kind of ran a really tight ship. And so when I reached out to a distant cousin, they said, absolutely, that's exactly who that is. So I knew based on her posture who she was. And so we want to make sure we're paying attention to that. And then, guys, one of the things I want to make sure that we're doing when we're looking at photographs too is that sometimes we get a photograph like this one on the right. We saw this a minute ago, and I couldn't tell the whole story, but pay attention to the grouping. This photograph was among a number of photographs and included with these over here. When I look at three together and the rest that were in this group, I know the story of what's happening. I know that this was my grandfather. I immediately will then know that this is in Eastern North Carolina when he joined the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, at the end of the Depression. And he was a cook. And here he is, right here. He was a cook. And you can see this is not a home. This is more of a barracky type of place that you would cook. There are 4 cooks there, so we know that that was part of it as well. They're relaxed. They work well. My guess is they probably work well together. They're kind of got that relaxed posture there. And then this was here as well. And this was a picture of the camp that they were at. And you can see kind of the barrack type of housing. We don't know which each of the buildings were, but we see that. And so that gives us a clue. All of a sudden, I could tell the story of this young man. Then I could research more about the Civilian Conservation Corps and learn a little bit more about that and what it meant to him, why he was part of it, what it would have done for him. And based on the number of photographs that were in this collection, I know that it was a very important time in his life because of the photographs. We have a number of them in this collection. We see his friends, we see him smiling. And so we know that this was a very important part of his life. So when you're not really sure about a photograph, if you have that option to look, if it's in a collection, that's important. That says as much about that photograph, where it is in the photo album or where it is in that box of photographs, what it's with. That can tell you a lot of information beyond what the actual photograph tells you. So that's a lot of information to throw at you. So I have a challenge for you guys. I want you to be your own photo detective, guys. I don't want you to just automatically throw away mystery photos just because I don't know who it is. I want you to take time to assess it. Maybe it is an accidental photo that, or maybe it was taken of the neighbor's dog. You don't necessarily need those, but don't just assume that it's not one that you don't necessarily need, that it may have some clues in it that you could use. Look at them by era. I oftentimes look at my photographs, based on location. If I look at the ones that were taken at a certain time period in a certain location to see if I can place people and place family members in a specific town or specific state at a specific time period, so I can look for further records in them for research. Again, looking at the photos as series. And it's always helpful to start with what you know. If you're looking at a photograph of 4 people, and you know one of those people, well, that's a great clue because then you know which side of the family you're looking at, right? So start with what you know and build on it from there. And guys, what's truly, truly important, you do all that work. You spend a lot of time with your photos. You enjoy digging into those, getting those stories like I do. Don't forget to share that with your family. Don't forget to share it with other people. It could be, on a family Facebook group. It could just be by email. But don't forget to share the stories. Maybe you just write it down in a journal, because I think when we have those, it's going to help not only ourselves, it's going to help other generations within our family, and going forward, be able to kind of tap into that heritage, tap into that family, those ancestral stories, and be a little more, maybe perhaps feel grounded in their own heritage as well. All right, so thank you so much, guys, for listening and attending to all of this. In the handout, I actually have all of these steps for you, so you don't have to remember those, so you can get those. I think there's a link in the chat. And then I also actually have a family photo starter, a family photo story starter bundle. It's hard to say. And you'll find a link to that in that handout as well. So be sure and grab that. And so I'm going to stop sharing actually and come over and see if there are any questions that I can answer for you guys.
All right.
And I'm going to grab a sip of water.
All right. Well, good. I'll take it from here for just a second, Lisa. Thank you so much. That was really fascinating to, what stories our photos can tell if we just look a little bit deeper, kind of knowing where to look. And thank you so much for showing us how and giving us some great tips. It really is fun to kind of discover what's in the photos. Before we get to everyone's questions, I just want to remind everyone about our Memory Keepers Live Summit, which is happening Saturday, September 27th. This one-day virtual event is perfect for anyone who wants to preserve, organize, and protect their photo and document collections. There'll be hands-on workshops for printed and digital photos and emergency preparedness hosted by industry experts. Our speakers include Matt Paxton from the hit show Hoarders, Casey Von Stein, or better known on Instagram as Miss Freddie, Melissa Foote, and Krista Kay, author of Beyond the Storm, Salvaging Photographs and Preserving Histories. There'll be networking, prizes, downloadable resources, and the sessions will be recorded. In addition, 10% of the proceeds from the summit will go to the Weather Resilience Fund, supporting disaster photo recovery, which sadly we have unfortunately heard of a lot. There's been a lot of need for that in recent months. So reserve your spot today for the summit. The registration link is pinned in the chat. So with that out of the way, we will get to our questions for Lisa. I know I saw several in the chat. Let's see. Okay, the first question, can the style of the photo help date it? For example, older photos seem to be just paper, not glossy. Some have scalloped edges and so on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So the style of a photograph will definitely help you narrow down some time period. So you can, some of the original ones were the earliest ones were daguerreotypes, and they have sometimes there's little photographs that you'll see in the hinged cases that are antique, and there are a couple different types during that time period. And to be honest, I always have to look it up because it's hard to get. I don't see them very often, and it's hard to keep them separate. There are there's a photograph that you might see quite a bit that are going to be like the thicker cardboard, or they're going to be mounted on a thicker cardboard look. Those are oftentimes called cabinet cards, or they might be smaller. The small ones are called carte de visite, and so the style of those, whether it's a scalloped edge, could indicate a later version. On cabinet cards, if they have a darker background, like a burgundy background, that might be a later one compared to the earlier ones, which are going to be a lot plainer with that. There are a lot of good resources out there. Maureen Taylor has an excellent website and book on that, on dating based on those, on the type of cards or type of photograph that you have, the characteristics there. I also have a blog post on my website that delineates the different types, the main types of photographs, and how you can tell the differences there. So yeah,
that's great.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, that's a great resource. So another question is, and this occurred to me as well while you were talking. I don't understand colorizing, this person asks. I mean, how do you or the application that you're using know what the colors should be? Is there something in a black and white photo, in the shades of the black and white, that the application uses to just determine the color in a particular?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I don't necessarily understand how it figures it out either. I don't know how the algorithms, it's an AI program basically, how it figures out what something should be. Early colorizations came back really weird. You'd have these, what they call the zombie look, because you'd have like everybody looking good, and then you'd have like half of somebody's face still black and white. And so that's gotten a lot better. Is it 100% accurate all the time? I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I will usually do my first work, if I'm really trying to analyze that photograph, I do it in the original black and white first, because I want to keep it as true. I don't want to prejudge something that is like the jar, like the canned fruit or the canned vegetables. I had already identified that as that. Okay, that's going to be pickles. They did the pickles. Because when I colorized it, it came out a different color of no vegetable that we grow here in North Carolina. So I was like, that's just not quite right. So I like the colorization, but I don't necessarily, if something doesn't look right, then I'm a little hesitant to it. I do like to do my main analysis usually in the original format that it's at.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's a best guess, right? I mean, unless there is a color version of that original photograph, there's no way to know for sure what it was. So, all right, we have one more question. Where do you document the details uncovered by talking to relatives? So I guess
So the couple ways to do this, and when I talk to relatives, I do ask them, may I record either video or just audio for that, and then I just label it and I store those in my Google Drive folder. But the information that they're giving me, I will typically take, and I do, I will put it to my family tree. So I have my own family trees at the major databases, but I do have an offline software, family tree Family Tree Maker, I think is what I use. There are a number, all of them are great. That just happened to be the one I used. And I will add that information to the family tree there under the notes section. So there is a section for me to do that. If you're just starting out and you don't actually have that, there is nothing wrong with just keeping a journal of it. I would probably keep a digital journal, and just write the story out, and have put an image of the photo in the document and write it out. At least I have it somewhere documented.
Right. I know you can too. I mean, also, I'm sure you probably have done this too. You can actually embed it in the metadata of the photo, depending on what software you're using. And you do need kind of some software, but it's a nice way to make sure that the data travels with the photo, no matter where it goes.
Yeah. I think I was thinking probably the longer stories are hard to get all of that.
True. There is there is often a limit. That's
yeah.
So, okay. Thank you so much for your questions. If there are any additional questions that we missed or that come in later, of course, Lisa will be able to answer questions on YouTube in the comments. Remember that every photo tells a story, everyone. By looking closely, you can uncover fascinating details about your family's past and preserve those stories for generations to come. I mean, this is why we do this, right? This is why the pictures were taken in the first place, to share the story, and enjoy it at the time and share it in the future. Is why we take photos today. So if you found today's tips helpful, give us a thumbs up and share in the comments which photo you can't wait to investigate first. And let us know what you found when you do. I want to thank Lisa again so much for coming and sharing all this great information with us. I'm excited to go kind of dig into some of my photos as well, for showing us how to uncover the amazing stories hidden in our photos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to register for saveyourphotos.org. Register at saveyourphotos.org so you can continue to get email reminders of all the remaining free sessions in September. Everything we're doing in September for Save Your Photos Month is free. Also, sign up for the Memory Keepers Live Summit. There'll be some great information and hands-on workshops at the summit. You can find links for both of these events in the video description for this video. And in the next Save Your Photos Month session, we'll learn how to safeguard printed photos from fire, water, and disasters with Gowan Weaver. That's actually tomorrow, September 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and register at saveyourphotos.org so you don't miss a thing this month. Thanks again for everyone for being here, and we'll see you next time.